as you can see, I'm wearing this on my head, not over my mouth, because there was so much news coming out and kind of bad news coming out, and I thought I don't want to cover my mouth anymore, so it's up there. Zack Snyder's Justice League, because it has to be done. Okay, and so before I forget, Zack Snyder posted an image, and this was what he posted. Now, what you can't see is the screenshot is actually the feet of Cyborg and stuff like that, and it's now. Here's the thing. And I'll probably repeat this when it comes closer to getting the trailer. Um, when it's I'm excited, yes. Why? Because it's right now we know that he's making the trailer up just now as we speak, and it's not something new, and I've been in two minds about wanting something new that is going to be his vision, but then again, if it's his vision and he doesn't give us anything new, which we know he's going to show us the new Steppenwolf and stuff like that. Something will blow our minds, but at the same time, I don't want it. I'd rather just give us something that we may have seen before, but shot by him. That way, it's. But then again, most of the normal people that don't know anything about it will say, "Is that not just the same film?" But we will know different. So again, it's I just don't want too much spoiled, So please be careful. Now with the feet thing, we already know that there's a scene where Cyborg crashes into the car or crashes into a tank or something and saves a cop that was played by the guy that played Jimmy in the Christopher Reeve movies, who then was also the cop in another scene in the prison or something like that, behind the glass. So anyway, now as we know, there's been a lot of people getting fired behind Warner Brothers. There's YouTube videos out there that's talking about, this is the end of DC Comics. I listen to a guy, Ned Rotic or stuff. He used to own a DC. Well, he used to own a comic shop, but he got out of that business. It's like they were just. I don't know if it was all going mainstream, or you, instead of going to a comic shop, you go and you buy one online or something like that, and it gets sent to your door, leaving out the middleman, which I sort of regret, because I remember the time when we never got comics, and it was like newsagent shops or something like that, and you would pick one or two. But with a comic shop, big shops like Forbidden Planet that has about 2 or 3 floors to it, and you see people done up in their t-shirts and everything else, and you make a connection. Well, I talk to people anyway, but it creates a kind of community. So without these comic shops, we're going to lose that, especially when we just had like TV series like The Big Bang Theory. So it brings us to the point where we have this DC fandom just now, and the DC fandom, everybody's talking about it, and it's going to release all this stuff about what's coming, what's in the future for DC, and at the same time, what's with HBO. So I came across this title. It says DC Universe Titans Doom Patrol futures in question after streaming service layoffs. DC Universe fate has been uncertain for some time now. The launch of HBO Max from parent company Warner Brothers raised suspicion that the streaming service could be meeting its end soon, but no official word has come out of it as yet. HBO Max recently offered a subscription deal to DC Universe users that provided the streaming service as an additional add-on, which may have already signalled the demise of the DC service. The popular DC Daily News show was also cut by the service in June, which is another sign that the DC Universe streaming platform could be shutting down. Earlier today, Warner Media announced that the company would be going through restructuring, resulting in cutting staff across all areas of the business. Unfortunately, these layoffs have impacted the DC branch of the business as well. Major layoffs from Warner Brothers have cut staff in both the DC Universe and DC Comics sectors. The Hollywood Reporter writes that most of the DC Universe staff have been laid off as the studio moves to focus on HBO Max. Also speaking to THR, told the outlet that the streaming service has been on its last leg ever since AT&T merged with the media conglomerate. It's currently unknown how this reorganisation will affect the DC Universe original programme like Titans and Doom Patrol. On the DC Comics side, Editor-in-Chief Bob Harris and nearly all Vice President members have also been laid off. The in-house merchandising branch, DC Merchandising, so the DC Direct stuff, has also been shut down completely. I mean, we lost the Warner Brothers shop. There's none of that in the UK, and now you're shutting down this merchandising thing. It's really bad. What this means with Warner Brothers' main efforts moving to its HBO Max streaming service, it comes as no surprise that DC Universe would become consolidated into the DC hub of the new streaming service. While there's no official announcement around this happening just yet, staff layoffs is a big sign that change for the DC Universe will be coming. No reason was given for the layoffs, but it can be assumed that the coronavirus impact on the company earnings has something to do with it. DC Universe was known for creating original shows such as Titans, Doom Patrol, Harley Quinn, Young Justice and Stargirl. While Stargirl has been acquired by the CW for its second season, there's no word on the status of the other originals. Titans and Doom Patrol are expected to have appearances at the upcoming DC Fandom, which may reveal more about the studio's plans for DC Universe, and it shows. How these layoffs will affect DC Comics publishing going forward is also unknown. The comic side of the business is still very much alive despite the focus on streaming, but with so many of the executives affected in the round of layoffs, the future of DC publishing could also be in jeopardy. And I can see that. Now, a sort of response to that, we have the Warner Media CEO recently done an interview. Jason Killer tackles HBO launch brand confusion, streaming rivals and CNBC. Anyway, in an interview with CNBC Warner Media CEO Jason Killer, I presume that's him there. HBO Warner Media CEO addressed the launch of HBO Max, conceded a mistake with HBO branding and comparing Max with Disney and NBCU's Universal streaming efforts. Today's interview was a large chunk of it about what was Killer's first since major layoffs hit Warner Brothers this week, starting date Friday and continuing Monday. 600 staffers departed the company, a roster headed by Bob Greenblatt and Kevin Riley, and two executives shepherding the May 26th debut of HBO Max. Killer, who started as CEO on May the 1st, wasn't asked about the layoffs in general, though he did field one query about the cable networks Riley oversaw. He said he can sleep well knowing that Casey Bloys now runs those businesses. His components follow those of AT and to John Stephens on Tuesday, who said that the reduction should not be viewed as a course correction. after the really great HBO Max launch. Notice the saying after a great HBO Max launch. And of course, people are comparing it to Disney. But this is where it gets better. If you take a look at the last 60 days, by any measure, from my perspective, we're in a really good position. Killer said of HBO Max, which drew 4.1 million sign-ups in its first 2 months. That's because of the Snyder's Justice League. If you look at what last year we thought and hoped we would be at the end of 2020, which is 36 million, HBO and HBO Max subscribers, we just announced a couple of weeks ago that we're actually north of 36 million already. And obviously the number's going up every day. Killer was pressed for how he would compare the HBO Max numbers with those of rival Disney's. And Peacock Disney reported 10 million sign-ups in the first day for Disney Plus last November, and said last week it now has more than 60 million global. That's the thing I've always been angry about, that HBO is not going globally. Since launch in April, different from actual subscriptions. Killer, former a senior executive at Amazon and founding CEO of Hulu, generally but firmly pushed back on both fronts. If you actually dive deeper in terms of apples to apples comparisons, especially on the NBC side of things, I think you'll see a bit of a different story, he said. Without elaborating on Disney, he echoed a common critique in the industry and among Wall Street skeptics that the service is a successful but limited. John Stansky, now CEO of Warner Media parent AT&T, called it not that deep as an investor conference last December when he was running the entertainment company and prepping the launch of HBO Max. Keep in mind, Killer said, that Disney is a 100-year-old surgical precise brand with regard to families with kids under the ages of 9. Generally speaking, so they did exactly what they should have done, and kudos to them. Ours is very different. Well, DC and Warner Brothers, they're always, been for a wee bit mature audience. Speaking so exact, kudos to them. Ours is a very different journey. I would argue in success, ours is bigger outcome because we are already going after all members of the family and all individuals, so the opportunity is bigger. So again, what he said in that statement, Disney's for kids. One hurdle in the early going for HBO Max is the fact that it entered the marketplace at the time as the two other well-established streaming services, HBO Go and HBO Now. Warner Media is phasing out Go, which was its authentical platform for HBO subscribers. HBO Now, a direct-to-consumer version of the linear HBO offering without the extra programming or originals contained on Max, has been renamed as just HBO. In hindsight, Killer said, it was a mistake to maintain a number of brands in the market. We were ultimately confusing, reducing the options to HBO and HBO Max. He reasoned as a much simpler proposition for consumers. Now, for me, after reading all that, if you didn't fall asleep already, they seem to have a plan in place. They seem to be... Now, you can call the layoffs bad. A lot of people are facing a lot of layoffs because of, say, the COVID virus, or not much acting in jobs and TV studios going forward. Hence, Zack Snyder's release came in perfect timing for HBO, and no wonder they were spending £30 million or in some to get this off the ground, because for me, they must be able to see the potential that he could give to HBO Max. Now, the fact that DC streaming services, whatnot, is closing down, and Doom Patrol and Young Justice, I would want them all on something like HBO Max. If you're going to somehow try and create some sort of streaming service, and have a sort of section of the streaming service dedicated to everything DC, well, I think DC Fandom's going to answer all that. I mean, they wouldn't have a DC fandom talking about the future of DC with all those guests, thousands of people from Val Kilmer to the original Wonder Woman, and a host of so many other people claiming they can't wait for this DC fandom, and they're all going to get together. Uh, and then a couple of weeks beforehand, you hear about all these layoffs and payoffs and everything else. And to me, it seems to me that AT&T have a plan, and they're taking DC serious. You know, they are taking DC, even comics, serious. Now, in the comics recently, of course, you had that awful picture of Wonder Woman that seems to be a big FU to some of the fans. And but I honestly believe this is why there's some probably payoffs and marketing. There's going to be a big, huge change afoot. Whether it's good or bad, we'll have to wait and see. But right now, I believe in order to get to this good place, I think they're going to, they have to make some sacrifices. And I think in 10 days' time, with DC Fandom just around the corner, we are going to just go crazy. I believe we're just going to go crazy. We're going to get impressed, and all these things that have just happened is going to be washed away, because it seems to be this company has a plan and they're going to enforce it, and they're just going to get rid of a lot of the deadbeats. I'm not saying all the people they're firing are deadbeats. There are some good ones in there that I believe they're making the wrong choice about. But again, we have to see. What is your thoughts on the future of comics? What's your thoughts on the payoffs or the TV programs, or what DC fandom might give us? Let us know in the comments below. Thank you very much. Zack Snyder's Justice League for a title. 10 days time. Let's do it. Was it 9 days now?